This is episode number 1, the debut with yours truly, Ryan Magic. Hello, beautiful human. Welcome to Grow with Ryan Magic, where each week I have open and honest conversations exploring different ways for you to grow. I'm a speaker, an entrepreneur, and a self-confessed growth junkie. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I really am pumped. So let's get into it. Now, although I'm not going to be going through my own bio, I am going to be sharing my whole life story with you in the episode today. But before we get into the episode, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you so much. You have no idea what it means to me that you're here listening to my story and tuning into my creative piece of art, where I get the chance to have conversations with people I look up to, serve people that I'm so grateful to be able to serve because you're into growth like I'm into growth. And one thing I would absolutely love from you is to, number one, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do that. But number two, if you could add me on Instagram and send me a message so we're connected, that would be so awesome. Just go to the Ryan Magic on Instagram and just say hello. I love connecting with like-minded people. So let's get into the episode today. Make sure you've got a pen and pad because I will be sharing the learnings from my journey as much as I will be going into the background of what led me to this point. So enjoy the episode. I'm so excited. Without further ado, let's get into it. What is going on, beautiful human beings? Thank you so much for taking the time to tune into this episode, which is particularly special for me. It's a chance for me to reflect and share my journey and the learnings that I've had through the big losses that I've gone through in my life, the hardship that I've gone through. And that's essentially going to lead me to be able to share what's most valuable for me today and the biggest learnings that I've had today. So I'm going to keep this interview with myself very candid, very casual. And I'm just going to discuss out in almost a introspective / reflective encounter of what my life's been to date. And it has been quite an interesting life. I will give myself credit for that. And it's all led me to this point of launching this podcast, which I'm mega psyched about because it really does encompass everything that I love, because I can talk about anything. And one of my biggest 3 values, I've got 3 personal values. One of my biggest values is expression. I love discussing, elaborating on, fine-tuning my map of reality and the way that I view the world. And another one of my 3 biggest values is empowerment, which is essentially learning habits and experiences that help grow and evolve who I am. And the experiences I'm going to be sharing in this podcast episode with you guys, this interview with myself, is one that is going to be very, very raw. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to tune in. And what would mean the absolute world to me is if, as I'm going through and sharing different experiences, if there's anything you can connect or relate to, just head to my Instagram at the Ryan Magic and just send me a message. Because the reason I do this is I really do want to inspire people to be able to move forward with their life and evolve while simultaneously loving themselves for where they're at. And I'll talk about how that whole mission and how that whole affinity to wanting to become a speaker and a coach came about for me when I'm talking about my journey. But I'm going to kick this off right at the beginning of my life. Now, I was born into a family of my mum and my dad who both have such big hearts, really beautiful humans at their core. However, really lacked personal fulfillment and self-love. And as a result, there was a lot of turbulence and dysfunction in our house in the way that I was brought up. Essentially, my dad being a drug dealer and my mum being an alcoholic, both abusing substances to escape a reality that they were not happy with. And as a little boy, I was incredibly nervous. You know, I've heard stories of when my mum's been held up at gunpoint, when people were robbing the house, trying to raid the house for drugs. Crazy stories. But even though I don't remember a lot of that stuff, whether I've kind of blocked some of it out or just was too young to remember a lot of it, it definitely did impact in my nervous system and within my psyche subconsciously. Because when I went to primary school, and this will give you a little bit of a snapshot of how I felt being a nervous little tacker, I literally did not feel comfortable around people. I was so shy. I had to be pulled off my mum's arms by the principal of my primary school, kicking and screaming every day. It's a bit of a random share, but it really does encompass the truth of how I felt. In prep, so the first year of school when I was 5 years old, I was so afraid to speak up and share my opinion with the teachers that I needed to go to the toilet once, and I was too afraid to ask, and I literally shit my pants in the middle of a class. And I was even too afraid to say that, and it was mega embarrassing. I just felt so trapped. And so I usually spent most of my lunch times and breaks that we had at school just doing maths sums. So I got very good at maths. And I was actually gifted with really solid application and, a lot of talent. Because I didn't spend much time socializing, I spent a lot of time working on things that I found interesting or exciting. And for me, that was sport and academics in primary school. And that really shaped who I became, someone that was really devoted to learning and someone that was really devoted to moving and achieving. Now, I'm going to touch on something here, and it's a big learning that I've had, which is that we all develop a strategy in life for how to show up in the world. And it's all based upon how we're parented, whether that is and raised by a teacher or whether it's our actual parents or a guardian. As kids, we are dependent. And when our whole life and safety is in the hands of somebody else, the problem with that is that we form an association that to be protected, we need to appease those people. And we develop what's known as a survival script, which is a set of directions that we subconsciously program into our mind of how we need to show up in order to be loved from our parents so that they will protect us if we get into a situation that is unsafe. Now, this is inbuilt within us. And the way that this survival script is formed is based on the positive and negative strokes that we're given by our parents. So, for example, if you do well with your homework and your parents give you lots of praise, you might go, okay, cool. If I do well at school, then I'm going to be worthy of love. Then I'm going to be protected. And this is usually in the range of ages 1 to 7, the sort of cues that we're given. This is when we're the most sponge-like, soaking up everything that our parents tell us. If you, for example, and sometimes it only takes really minuscule events to shock you to a certain belief of what you need to do to be worthy of love, and that can really impact the script that you need to have to survive and need to adhere to survive. For example, you might sing one day as a kid, because we see kids, they freely express. They're so authentic. If they want something, they say what they want. If they feel like expressing themselves by singing, they'll just sing. If they want to get naked, they'll just get naked. And if our parents, for example, we sing and our parents say, you're not to sing like that, we may form a rule in our head, a belief that if we express ourselves and share our creativity, that we won't be worthy of love. That's a negative stroke. And therefore, we may be abandoned in the times where we need to be protected by our parents. And lots of different examples of this. But for me, the main way that my script was formed was that if I don't achieve, then I'm not worthy of love. And this is because my dad, from a very young age, I remember he used to kick an Aussie rules football around an oval. Our house backed onto an oval, a reserve that had a football oval there and had a basketball court and a playground. That was a massive plus growing up, backing onto there. Spent a lot of time playing sport out there. However, when I kicked the football with my dad, he used to always be priming me to succeed. And if I didn't do something right, like catch the football, he'd tease me about it, or he didn't mean really badly by it, but in my mind I formed, if I want to be worthy of love and therefore be protected, I need to achieve. And the pinnacle of this for me, getting to age 10, 9, 10, 11, is that I remember getting to the end of one season of football, and I cried because I thought I had the worst season that I've ever had in football, and I thought that I'd just done really badly. And then I ended up getting a letter in the mail being invited, and 3 people from our whole football league with 15, 20 teams, whatever it was, 3 people get invited to see which of the 3 people was the best player in the whole league out of every single player and every single team. And I ended up winning that. I was the best player out of every single team in the whole league, and I won by 8 votes. I think I had 24 votes, and the closest person was 16. So I was literally 30% better than anyone in the whole league, and I cried because I thought it was so crap. And that really is the antithesis of how I thought of myself growing up in the world. Now, I remember that I was always doing things to try to achieve. I set my goal at grade 4 because my basketball teacher mentioned that one of her friends had got a scholarship to a private school and really gave him lots of praise. And I went, wow, I should set that as my goal. And at age 10, I set a goal to get a scholarship to a private school, which I did. And that for me was really foundational. And I honestly believe that the attention and the love that the teachers gave at the private school I went to played a huge impact in helping guide me and make me feel supported. If it wasn't for that, I think I would have struggled a hell of a lot more than what I did, even though I did struggle a lot. So what essentially happened was throughout the whole of primary school, I was really nervous, but I built up my confidence because I was good at things and I put a lot of devotion into sport, and I was really good at football. I was really good at running and athletics, and I was really good at basketball and academic. I won the academic award of my primary school. And so I was included into activities with the cool kids because I was good at things, but I felt really out of place. I felt so anxious and nervous. And I built myself up more and more and more to the point, and this is one of the most pinnacle moments of my whole childhood. When I was 13 in my first year of high school, I remember I woke up one morning and I could hear screaming in the background, which was not that uncommon because there was a lot of fighting, hardcore abuse going on mentally, emotionally, sometimes physically, but more mentally and emotionally, just with yelling, screaming all the time. And I heard my dad on the phone just saying, "No, you're not. Like, what? You're not. You shut up and listen to me. What do you mean you're not coming back?" And he was just screaming into the phone, and it was my mum on the other side, and she'd actually left. She was suicidal, and she couldn't live anymore with my dad, and she left. And I had a really close relationship with my mum, not so much of a close relationship with my dad, but I didn't see my mum for the next 3 or 4 years. And that was the hardest time of my entire life. I can tell you that for sure. What essentially happened was I was in this private school. I went from kind of hanging around, actually had a few girlfriends in year 7, and then I just lost all of my confidence. I don't know exactly how. Like, it's those illogical conclusions that kids come to and pin things on themselves. But I just felt so low, and I was so afraid of being put down or talking to people that I stopped hanging out with anyone that had a strong personality. I would just hang out with really quiet people. And because I'd hang around with the quietest people that were the most non-threatening, because I was so anxious and so nervous, just really nervous. And eventually I built my confidence back up as I started to go through high school. But the way I did that was by acting out, being silly for attention. And that kind of made me feel like I was more of a somebody. But when I got to age 16, something changed. So I went from 13 to 16, building up my confidence again by acting out and being silly. And I really didn't have much sense of self at all. And at home, things were very nasty and turbulent. And we'll get going from house to house to house because we literally had McDonald's every night for dinner for 2.5 years in a row because my dad didn't cook or clean or do anything like this. And he didn't have any money, so we lost our house and we were living in relatives' houses, but we'd get kicked out because my dad was doing dodgy stuff in all the houses. And then we lived with my nan, who was one of the people that believed in me the most, and I love her. And she passed away maybe 6 years ago. However, she really believed in me, but she smoked inside the house. So I got in trouble from the teachers who accused me of smoking because there was literally the whole house was just full of smoke. That was terrible living there. So it was a really turbulent time. But when I was 16 years old, for me, golf was probably my biggest devotion point, escape. And I used to practice before school, after school. The golf course that I actually played at was across the road from the school that I went to, which was so convenient. I really loved playing golf, and it was very quiet. I could go on the course and be in nature, and it was something that I was good at as well. And there was this guy at the golf club. His name was David Shen, and he really looked out for me. He believed in me. I could really feel that. And he set me this challenge once. We were playing competition and said, if you shoot this certain score, I'm going to buy you an iPod for your birthday. And for me, that was a potential dream come true at that point when funds weren't as nice as what I would have liked. We didn't really have much money. And so I was like, game on. I'm going to go for this, shoot the score. And I ended up shooting the score. And every day for the next 3 weeks, I'd go into the golf club's pro shop and say, has Dave left anything for me? And 3 weeks later, I got in there and there it was. The iPod was there, and I ran straight home and I was so excited. I got the iPod out. I went to load songs on it. This is one of those old-fashioned, big, heavy, chunky iPods. And David had already put a bunch of music on there. And I was looking at the artist, of which I did not recognize. I'm looking at it. Tony Robbins? Who is this? And I started listening, and it's like, this guy's talking. He's not singing. What's going on here? And so essentially, David Shen, this guy that I would definitely say was a mentor for me in those teenage years, he'd put me onto personal development. And at that point, when I didn't really feel like I could be somebody in life, I legitimately, I would say that I had pretty much no confidence. I was very depressed and anxious, very anxious and quiet. I wasn't myself. I didn't have much self-worth. And then I started listening to Tony Robbins, and those Personal Power, Get the Edge were a couple of his audio programs, old school audio programs. And I started to believe that I could be more than my situation. It allowed me to just have hope that I could do something with my life. And even though my association to who I was at school, it was difficult for me to come out of my shell because there were so many anchors to my environment in that high school. As soon as I got to age 18, that's when everything changed for me. That's when I felt like I could have a fresh start. And I did every single thing that I could possibly think to do that was outside my comfort zone because I felt regret that I hadn't made the most of my schooling. And so some of the things that I did when I was 18, I started a sales job to get confidence. And actually, in the first month of this sales business, I broke a 20-year sales record in my first month doing this charity box door-to-door stuff because I was just so hungry. I was making not literally, but I was making $8 an hour at the golf course, and I'd already moved out of home at this point, so I was on my own, finding my own way through the world. And I could make $400, $500 a day doing this charity box stuff. And I thought that was the most incredible thing ever. And so I was going hard at that. That was super formative for me. I had no confidence talking to girls in high school, by the way. I was just terrified of it. Some weird stuff going on with my mum and being nervous of feminine energy because my mum had left, and I just didn't have any confidence. So I would literally take myself to nightclubs and I didn't drink either. I would take myself to nightclubs and just practice talking to people I didn't know. And one particular really extreme thing that I did outside my comfort zone was I was out talking to randoms that I didn't know. And I was talking to this couple who were 30 years old, and they asked me what I did. And for fun, I said that I was a male stripper. And they said, wow. And I didn't expect this to happen. that's so cool. You should do a show for my friend's 30th birthday. And I had a rule with myself at this point. Anything that got presented as an opportunity for growth that's outside my comfort zone, I have to do. So I said, sure, I'll do it. And I roped one of my friends into doing this show with me, and we practiced his routine, and my friend pulled out. I ended up doing this full dance strip show in front of a bunch of crazy 30-year-old girls. And it was the most liberating, incredible experience of my life because of how far outside my comfort zone it was. Crazy. That was a really interesting experience. I joined Toastmasters, and for anyone listening or watching that doesn't know what that is, it's an organization to practice public speaking. And I did not public speak. I could not public speak. I remember once in high school, I had the courage to volunteer to do a speaking thing, and I ended up pulling out beforehand. I could not do it. So that was huge, and that changed a lot for me. I moved to Perth, where I didn't know anyone other than a couple of relatives, and that was great for my confidence. And then I started a business, and I started cold calling tradies, and this was my very first entrance into business. And I really learned so much from embracing discomfort here just before this. And up until this point in my life, I never really believed that you could make that much money. With that charity job that I did in Melbourne before I moved to Perth, just after high school, I did a lot better than working at the golf course, but it was, around $100,000 a year I would have been working full time. However, I started cold calling tradies. I had no idea what I was doing with business. I had a friend that encouraged me to get into business, and I took the leap. I knew I wanted to do that. But at this point, I thought business is something that only big entrepreneurs did. I didn't realize a tradesperson was a business owner or a restaurant owner was a business owner. I didn't understand business at all. I thought Richard Branson was an entrepreneur, and that's what an entrepreneur was. And I was like, I'm going after that, even though I didn't understand what business was. And I thought there was a 1 in a million chance that I could make it work, but I went after it anyway, again, in the spirit of going outside my comfort zone and chasing what I wanted in life. And within a few months of cold calling, I did 60 to 100 dials every single day, calling tradies, trying to sell them websites. And I got pretty good at it. I learned how to and taught myself how to do a one call close. So I'd cold call a tradie that I'd never spoken to before, and then by the end of that first call, have them give me their credit card details and put through their website, or at least a deposit for it, which was really incredible. And within 3 months, I had 1 week where I literally made over $6,000, and I was 19 at this point, and I couldn't believe it. I thought it was so ridiculously incredible, and I kind of future paced the numbers and went, I've got a $300,000 business. Made $6K in 1 week, times that by 50 weeks, I'm going to make $300,000. And very quickly, I got to that point where I experimented with all sorts of businesses. I was trying to find the vehicle that I wanted to sink my teeth into. But I learned over a couple of years. By the time I got to about 20, going on 21, I've been doing so many different businesses. I had a SaaS product called PT Sites. There was a website builder for personal trainers, and I was offered investment in that. I sought out the investment and I secured investment, but people would be taking 50% of my company. No, 60% of my company. I would keep 40%. There were 3 people that would have 20% each, and they were going to invest for the whole platform, which is going to be 50 to 100K. And I was like, this is amazing. And I got some other people involved in it. And then I went, what am I doing? Like, if I actually back myself, why am I risking other people's money? And so I took all my savings and I launched that business myself. That was one of the businesses I had. I also did dating coaching. I also had a digital agency. I also had a JV with someone where I was helping them get coaching clients. And in exchange, I got a percentage cut from that. And I was also involved in an app, a social media platform called Mood Swing. And I had equity as a marketing strategist for that business. So I had 5 businesses going at once. And I very quickly realized that even though that was what Richard Branson had, built this massive portfolio of businesses, 300 plus businesses, that he spent 8 years building Virgin Records before his second venture, which was actually a gay nightclub called Honey or Heaven that he invested in London. And when I realized that, I went, okay, time to chill out. And so I focused on a digital agency. And when I put all my focus in, and I just did marketing, sales, sales meetings, marketing, sales, networking. And I built up a business that was doing pretty well. And we were on track to do about 1.6 mil projected over the first 12 months, which was pretty awesome. But I was never really passionate about websites. It was just what I knew I could do well because I had experience with it already. And I went, if I was going to die in 5 years' time, or if I died right now, would I be happy with what I'd left behind? Is there unspoken messages that I want to put out there? What do I really want to do? And I knew deep down that the way that Tony Robbins changed my life, I wanted to do that for others. But I thought I had to have done 10 mil in business and be this wildly successful person to have permission to do what I really wanted to do. And when I realized that was bullcrap, and in the face of death, if I was to pass away right now, I would regret not doing it. I literally dropped my entire web business that had a team of 8 people at that point, 20 or so projects, big web projects on the go. And I shut it all down, lost all my cash flow, was down to scratch, had to borrow money for the deposit of a $50,000 program that I purposely invested in to get me to, no matter what, have to make sales as a coach and a speaker doing what I loved. And that was a huge pivotal moment for me. That was such a courageous decision that I made. $50,000 to be able to, and it was a $5K deposit, and then it was a payment plan over a year. So an average of $1,000 a week over the 12 months. And I made an agreement with myself that I was going to do anything to make this work. And if the worst case scenario is that I just pay off the coach at $50K plus GST, then at least I've got a business doing what I love, making $50K a year. After that, I could just stop paying the coach and have a $50,000 a year business. And I'd prefer that, and to know that I was in alignment and fulfilling my destiny, than making money doing something that I didn't love. And that was at age 21 when I started that business. Now, the biggest and the only way that I could make that business work was, number one, I needed to be pushed into a corner. That's where that $50K investment into that coach made a huge amount of difference. The second thing was, I was terrified of marketing campaigns and sales calls not going well. I had so much pressure that I'd put, and this is a big lesson for anyone listening, I had so much pressure that I would put on the outcome of every single micro business action that I wanted to do, that it paralyzed me, and I didn't take as much action as I wanted to do. So for example, I wanted to launch Facebook ads for my digital agency for ages, and I never did it because I was scared. What if it doesn't work? What if that means that maybe I can't grow this business on the level that I wanted? And I associated that a micro failure was going to lead to a macro failure. But before I started Winning International, which was the name of this business that I was going to do, that was my passion business, what I decided and what I realized was that if you aren't willing to fail on a micro scale, meaning that you launch a seminar, no one shows up, you write a book, no one buys it, you launch a Facebook ad, you get no leads, the micro actions to the macro that are going to help the macro goal. If you can't fail on a micro scale, you will definitely fail on a macro scale. And I realized that by examining some friends that were around me that were doing wildly well in business. And I realized that. And so I made a decision within myself as I launched this business, Winning International. I just invested and signed myself up to this mentorship. There was just a course, by the way. There was no one-to-one coaching, but it was just the mere investment that I wanted to make to pin myself into a position where I had to grow and make it work. And I made a decision with myself that even though I've never spoke, I'm terrified of speaking. At this point, I was scared of posting on social media, to be 100% honest. I was terrified of posting because I thought the people that bullied me at school, I didn't think much of me at school, were going to tease me. And I was still afraid of sharing my voice. So what I did was I made a decision that I was going to run a seminar every single week until this business was successful. Every single week. And so week one, I was thinking, if it takes 3 years for me to get good at this, at least in 3 years' time, I'll be doing $1 million a year. I knew that from a success perspective, that if you run a seminar every single week, it's impossible to not get good if you're doing it that often over a long period of time. And that took away the pressure of needing to have that micro action work, because I knew that I was going to get the macro result if I was devoted to the micro steps. And so I ran first seminar and I just poured my heart out. I was speaking with so much passion from the front of the room. I was just unleashing everything that I had. I made a decision I was going to commit at the highest level to doing this. And I made 5 sales at $1,000 for an 8-week program. So I made $5,000 in my first week. Second week, I ran another seminar, another 5 sales at $1,000. The third week, I flew to Perth and we had a JV set up to speak in front of another audience and made 8 sales, but I doubled the price point. So I made $16K. And then the week after that, I doubled the price point again. We made it $5K in a payment plan, $4K if you pay up front. So within 4 weeks, I'd have gone from $1K to $4K and had made a bunch of sales. And within 10 weeks, I did 12 seminars and had my first 50 clients as a coach. And this business, that was my big chunk of being in business. I built a 25-person team. I learned how to manage people. I learned how to do operations. I learned how to hire, fire. I learned how to set up legal, accounting. And I made a ton of mistakes, pretty much every mistake you could foresee. And that journey really summarized me stepping into my power through taking courageous action in important areas to growing a business, revenue generating activities. And I got us to a point where the highlight of our success was doing $1 million a month in this business. But on the same token, there was something, so I'll give myself recognition for some of the accomplishments. I wrote a best-selling book, which was amazing, a 430-page book. It's actually, should be one just around here somewhere. Oh, here it is. I've got a bookshelf under the computer here. Secrets of the 7-Figure Coach, 430 pages. That was a massive achievement because English was my worst subject at school and I was not a very good writer. I built a 100,000 person following, which is also a huge achievement while I was running this business. I did a bunch of fear challenges, one doing a motivational rant on a tram that my friend recorded and put on Facebook, and it ended up having a couple of million views, which was really cool. Built a sales team, launched a successful podcast. My last podcast, I had a podcast called the Pain and Gain Podcast. And I essentially built a business helping life coaches grow their business, where I could travel the world and do what I loved, speaking. And we went to Monte Carlo, to Switzerland, to New Zealand. To Vegas, Bali, Thailand. I literally flew around the world running my own retreats and seminars, doing what I loved. And at this point, that was all the way up until about the age of 25, going on 26. And the whole thing that stimulated the growth of that was courage, taking action beyond what felt comfortable, and channeling my efforts into the areas of the business that were going to create growth, marketing initiatives, sales, etc. But there was a blind spot, and that really paved the way for my business knowledge, doing all the experimenting with all these different businesses before I started this business at 21 and doing all the growth activities to grow this business to being a multi-million-dollar business and ultimately doing 8 figures total in that business. And I was missing something, and I couldn't see it at the time, but I was missing something. And I started to get signs that I was ignoring. I could not grow the business past the point that I wanted to grow it. I couldn't get it past 25 team members. I couldn't crack I couldn't get it past 8 figures revenue. I couldn't get it to the 8-figure mark. And I didn't know why. I was trying everything. I was hiring mentors, coaches. I was literally trying everything, redesigning the culture, the values, changing everything in the business. And I would go from 20 team members down to 12, back up to 22, down to 15, up to 25, down to 10, up to 18. And I just had to keep rebuilding teams. I hired over 50 full-time staff in this process of just like iterating. I was working so hard, But the blind spot for me, which came wildly apparent when I started meditating at the same time as meeting my my current love of my life, Danny, at the same time as having an executive steal a bunch of money and just demolish the business, like literally cause a crap ton of problems in the business. All of these things happened at the same time. And all of a sudden I realized I didn't love myself unconditionally. I didn't know this. I was preaching messages, uploading videos all the time, inspiring young people, but it was coming from a place of trying to prove myself to the world. And I didn't even know that my confidence and my self-worth was conditional. I didn't know that. And when I realized that, I started downsizing the business. I started, and I ended up shutting down that business and creating space for me to explore growth. I did over 200 coaching sessions with healers and therapists and inner child work and exploring this idea. And I was incredibly hard on myself, which was the same problem fitting into trying to solve the problem. But I did not love myself unconditionally. And so I went deep into meditation. I went deep into spiritual growth. I went deep into emotional and mental growth and my mindset, even though I'd already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching up until that point. I didn't even see a fundamental piece of self-hatred within myself where I didn't love myself unless I was succeeding at a high level. So I purposely shut down my succeeding. And this marks about 18 months or so to 2 years ago. And what an amazing journey that has been. And one of the reasons that I want to do this podcast is to help people grow. And that's one thing that I did dial in. And then I went to the other polarity and explored what I think the other second most important part of life, if the goal is fulfillment, growth and love are the two elements that I believe make up that fulfillment. And so I'd learned to grow, but I didn't learn to love. I didn't learn to love myself. And because if you don't love yourself, how can you love others? The element is, the point here is you can't. You can only love others to the degree in which you love yourself. And this caused lots of problems. I was blocked off in my relationship, still uncovering layers to help me be able to feel worthy of love and connect deeply with my gorgeous partner, Danielle Fenner-Smith. And learn to actually choose businesses for the sake of passion and excitement, to play business because I love business, not because I need to be appeased by others and that I need others to really show me my value. And so I was pretty much chilling out. If you go 9 months ago, I was just chilling, just relaxing, just giving myself space to rejuvenate. And I was okay with that. I got to the point where I literally was okay with feeling into what I needed next. And what I needed was rest. But about 3 months ago, out of nowhere, I started to feel this insatiable desire burning up in me to get back in and start building something meaningful again. And it was very difficult having gone to one extreme of grow, and then the other extreme of love, surrender, chill, relax, rejuvenation. It was quite the balancing act, learning to get back into the growth while I also simultaneously gave space for rejuvenation and did it in a balanced, sustainable way. And here I am right now, setting the vision to build the world's biggest personal development platform to inspire people to grow and love themselves and bring their fulfillment on the journey. That is the purpose of this podcast. I've also launched a men's program that is for elite entrepreneurs doing over 250K a year. So they've got some runs on the board and helping them to learn to love themselves and build their character to a point that they can build a multi-million-dollar empire, but be a powerful entrepreneur that brings fulfillment on that journey as well. And so there's a bunch of exciting projects that are coming out at the moment. I'm going to be launching a magazine soon as well. And just at this point where getting back into the flow of business. And so the fact that you're here listening to me right now and trusting me, if you're at this point in the interview, my gosh, the interview with myself, I'm really, really grateful. And I would really love if you send me a message on Instagram to @the_Ryan_Magic, just sharing anything that connected with you from here. And I'm not done with this episode yet, but I really do want to honor you and say thank you so much, because for me, the reason I do this here with you now, interviewing people, is because I love it. If I didn't get paid for this, which I'm not getting paid for this right now anyway, but if it wasn't, even if it didn't lead to a monetary outcome, which it will, I'm very good at monetizing things, I'd still do it. I would do it for free because I love it. I love personal development. Now, before I wrap this episode up and give you permission to jump onto the other episodes that are filled with really unique personal development content, I want to talk about the sort of personal development content that we'll be exploring and why throughout this podcast's journey. And the answer is everything. And the reason why is I'm business obsessed. I'm an entrepreneur. I love growth. And the reason I love entrepreneurship is because it creates a vehicle for me to explore never-ending growth. But if you want to succeed in any area of your life, personal development and being open to every aspect of that, spiritually, emotionally, physically, with your health, relationships, dating, your fulfillment, your relationship with death, doing psychedelic therapy, doing deep emotional inner child works, doing anything that could lead to your growth, cold water therapy. I'm into all of it. And through the process of this podcast, through the process of these interviews, I want to give you permission to lead your own personal development journey with an open mind and see by exploring deeply and then allowing that deep exploration to flourish externally, with your life being a representation, a metaphor for how devoted you are to expansion. We're going to explore all of it. And I want to pre-frame that the reason why is because every time you try something new on your personal development journey, it impacts your physical life. I really believe that fulfillment comes from love and growth. And growth impacts your love. And love impacts your growth. And together, you can marry these two really important categories and live the most fulfilling life possible. And when I got to the point of most financial success, having everything that I wanted, supercar, 4-story designer house that was designed on TV, sexy, gorgeous, amazing partner, the ability to fly anywhere I want, whenever I want, and just have the finance to have the creative expression to do what I want. It was meaningless without the art of fulfillment, without learning to love myself, and without having that devotion to who I am unconditionally. So I really want you to come here and not just listen to the episodes that you already like the content in, although I'm going to really dig and challenge certain presenters on different things and give different perspectives on topics that may already be commonly explored. I'm really going to put my mind and curiosity to the test through these interesting conversations that I'll be having. But I want to encourage you to explore the areas that you may be more shut off to, that you might not feel as pulled towards engaging in. And the reason why is because growth occurs in discomfort. Growth occurs from the unknown. Because if you already know something and control something, and you're already familiar with something, there's no room for growth there. You've already got it. And so you don't have to evolve to be able to hold the space in that new realm, that new territory. And so if you're someone that's really savvy when it comes to investing and finances, if I'm doing an episode on relationships, listen to that episode. If you're something that's really connected and deep and prioritizes spiritual development, but you're not showing up in terms of tangible business success, jump in and listen to the business mentors, because I hold a worldly, balanced perspective on things. I'm very open-minded, and I'm going to create a safe container for us to explore topics that we might not feel comfortable and safe in. And I really want to encourage you to be open to all of it. And if you are watching and listening to this interview with myself, this is a space for growth junkies, for people that just want to keep evolving and get the most out of this life, just to be able to see what's possible. So that concludes today's episode. I have loved explaining and exploring my journey so far, and I hope I helped. I really do hope that this was able to make some kind of impact to you and support you in your life. And I really feel grateful that I do get the chance to help you, hopefully in a similar way to what Tony Robbins helped me on my journey, and hundreds of other thought leaders continue to help support me on my journey of growth all the way up until today. I've spent over $500K in personal development, and I plan on spending millions more across my life. And I look forward to putting all those gems, knowledge, wisdom, and extracting wisdom out of others on the journey that we go on together through this podcast. So massive love. Have a beautiful day, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my story today. I hope it made an impact to you, and if it did, please share this episode out there. If you haven't yet subscribed to the podcast, please do. And it would mean the world to me if you sent me a message letting me know how this interview made a difference to you. By the way, interview with myself. Now, before we wrap up this episode, I really want to make it clear the importance of seeking growth, trying to better yourself, achieving greatness in your life, but also simultaneously making sure that you're bringing fulfillment and love on the journey. Sure, having some success is fantastic, but love and joy is what makes it all worthwhile. So please take that message to heart. I'm so grateful that you're joining me on this journey. I really am. And don't forget to never stop growing.